Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at my favorite fountain pens, non-fountain pen pens, pencils, notebooks, really any stationery items that are in my collection, because this summer I'm going to be taking the rest of my collection to the St. Louis Pen Show with me, my first pen show ever, and my sister and I are going to have a table, and the rest of the stuff, I'm going to attempt to sell it. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video, but yeah, I'm kind of excited about my first pen show. The first pen I'm going to take a look at is the Pilot Custom Heritage 92. I steered away from this pen for a long time because it's a piston filler, and I have a piston filler. I have a TWSBI Mini. I've had no problems with it, but I just prefer a buffer between the ink and the outside. And that's why my favorite filling system is a cartridge converter, because if there's a leak, if there's an issue, it stays contained within the pen. But I eventually bit the bullet and got one, and I could not be happier with it. Out of all the Pilot pens that I own, I just love the dimensions of this. Now, I should say all the Pilot capped pens. I like this better than my Custom 72 because when it's posted, it's just still a nice size in my hand. The Custom 72 is a little bit too long when it's posted. I like the weight of it. I've got my favorite nib size, the Pilot 14 karat fine nib. When I eventually got this pen and started using it, I thought, this is the only pen I need in my collection. But then about a month later, my family and I made a trip to see my oldest daughter, and I had an opportunity to go to Appleboom's store in Boston, and I got to hold a Pilot Vanishing point for the first time, and I thought, hey, that's not bad. I love the feel of this in my hand. And I was able to dip test an extra fine nib, 18 karat extra fine. It was fantastic. So I ended up picking this up. It's really close between these two, which is my favorite. I would say they're tied for my favorites. The one thing that the Custom Heritage 92 has going for it, I love demonstrator pens. I love being able to see how much ink is in my pen. That's just a very handy feature. Whereas the Vanishing point, depending on whether you have a cartridge in it, which if you have a cartridge in it, you have to have this little metal sleeve over it. You can't see how much ink you have. If you have the converter in it, you can barely, you can get a little bit of a look at how much ink you have in the pen. So really, that's the only downside for me to the Vanishing point. The plus side of the Vanishing point that bumps it back up and makes it tied with the 92 is just the ease of use. Now, before I picked up the Vanishing point, the click feature of it was actually something I wasn't interested in. I thought, that's not a fountain pen. That's not going to feel like using a fountain pen. But once I tried it, oh, this is just so handy. And it does feel like a fountain pen. Now, I have since switched out the extra fine nib for a fine nib. The extra fine nib is nice, but I prefer the fine nib. The Pilot Medium, gold medium nibs are really nice, but I prefer the fine nib. So I've got a fine nib on both of these, and they both give you that kind of soft, slightly soft, slightly bouncy fountain pen feel. I love it. They're not flex nibs, but there's just a slight softness to it that I really enjoy. So I will definitely be keeping these two. Next, I've got the Visanti Mirage Mythos that my husband got me for Christmas one year. It's got a magnetic cap, and that's something that I kind of shied away from. I avoided getting magnetic capped pens because I was afraid of the magnet corroding, but My husband picked this one up for me, and I've had no problems with any corrosion. And like with the Vanishing point, this is just a handy feature and kind of satisfying, that click when it snaps together. In order to keep that lined up when it's capped, it's got these little notches that align with the notches in the cap that keep everything aligned nicely. The resin is just beautiful. My husband got me the Apollo model, and he knows I like neutral tones, and he did a great job. Now, he did get me the medium nib, and I was a little concerned about this. When I first inked it up, it was super wet. But I did a little work on it, and I have it paired. When I use the medium nib, I pair it with Ackerman Israel's Zablau. And this is a dry type of ink, but I love it. It is the first Ackerman ink that I tried when I first started exploring inks, but it just dried out in a lot of pens that I used at the time. But that dryish ink kind of tames this really wet medium nib, and it's just fantastic. Usually I don't like inks that are finicky with the pen you have to use it with, or pens that are finicky with the type of ink you have to use it with. But since I found a nice pen and ink pair that I absolutely love, that's okay with me. This is a giant bottle of Ackerman ink, and I just love using these two together. Now, I did pick up a fine nib because I do like my fine nibs. The fine nib writes a little bit dry, but I have some wetter inks and some inks that work well with that fine nib that I'll talk about a little bit later. But when I use this pen, I usually use it with the medium nib installed. Another pen I'll be keeping is my Leonardo Momento Zero I think this was the jade finish. It just has all kinds of greens, kind of bluish greens and yellowy greens. I like green ink, so you can use a variety of different shades of green ink in this, and it looks great. Now, I'm not always matchy-matchy with my pens and inks, but this was another pen that I picked up one summer at Appleboom when I was visiting my daughter. This was the pen that I got the first time I visited my daughter when she moved out far away from home. And it was interesting. I went to Appleboom. I was planning on getting this pen, but they didn't have it in stock. And I thought, oh, well, I can't remember. I think I got some notebooks for my daughter who was in school at the time, my younger daughter. And the next day or a few days later, I thought, well, there were some other pens in the store. My son-in-law said he would take me back to the pen store, and I thought I would get some kind of pen as a souvenir. And I walk in, and they had this pen on display. It had just come in that morning. Now, I was wanting to get the extra fine flex nib. They didn't have that. They just had, this one had a fine nib. Let me see. No, it did. It had an extra fine nib. And I thought, well, I mean, that's fine. I do like my extra fine nibs. Now, on these Yovo nibs, the extra fine corresponds to about the size of a Pilot fine nib, so that was just right. And I picked up at the same time my favorite Jacques Herbin ink, Verdad Antide. Now, it's a shimmer ink. It's got a champagne colored shimmer. I'll be keeping this ink to use in this pen. I'm not a big fan of shimmer inks, but Jacques Herbin inks tend to have a very fine shimmer, and it just works great in this pen. And I was able later to pick up an extra fine Yovo Flex nib. Now, it is branded on the nib. It has Edison Pen Company on the nib, but I don't mind that. It's a silver colored nib, and I really enjoy using it. Whenever I'm using the shimmer ink, the Jacques Herbin shimmer ink, I usually put that flex nib in it. Now, I'm not a flex nib writer. That's not something that really interests me that much, but I just like the slight bouncy feel that you get with it, and you get a little bit more ink flow, and that works nicely with that shimmer ink. And this is a nice souvenir of visiting my daughter, and I think this might be the only pen I have that uses that Yovo number 6. So I've got this extra fine plain old nib. I've got the Extra Fine Flex that is branded by Edison Pen Company. And I also have a fine nib, which kind of to me corresponds to a Japanese medium nib. I got it from Mike Madison, and it's branded with his ink dependent. So I like having those options to use with this pen. So I'll enjoy keeping this pen. And I believe those are the only fountain pens that I'm going to intentionally keep in my collection. The rest I'll be taking to St. Louis this summer, and if they all sell, you know, that's fine. But if some of them don't sell, all of the pens that I have in my collection, I did a lot of research before I bought them, so I like them. It's just that I have so many pens now that so many go unused that I need to get some of them out of my collection so they can get used. I'm one of those people that if I have too many choices, I'm just paralyzed by my choices. So I'm looking forward to kind of clearing out my collection a little bit. But like I said, whatever pens don't sell, that's fine. I'll be happy to keep and use those. Now, as far as notebooks go, I got this Traveler's Company Camel notebook from my daughter for Mother's Day one year. In fact, she got me a Goulet Pens gift card, and this is what I got with it, and I absolutely love it. I love the weight of it. It just feels substantial in your hand. I love being able to switch out inserts. I also like making my own inserts, so this is a keeper. I also am going to be keeping my Lockbee pocket notebook, and I wanted to use it as kind of an adventure journal, but I'm kind of a boring person. I don't go on that many adventures, so I've been using it as kind of like a wallet. I have recently gotten a new dog, and he likes to go on car rides. And instead of taking my entire purse with me when we go on a car ride, I've got kind of a large purse. I just keep the essentials in here in my purse, and when I'm going on a car ride with him, I'll just grab this out of it, and it's got my primary credit card in it here in the front slot. And I keep a little cash in here. Now, cash, money, US dollars, are just a bit too long to slide in the pocket this way. So I just fold it up and keep it here beside my credit card. I've got a business card from a new hairdresser I went to. I've got a couple secondary credit cards, my driver's license. I could keep some stuff in this back pocket if I needed to. And I have a notebook. This isn't the Lockbee notebook that came with it. I'm keeping it for something special because it's got nice Tomoe River paper in it. But this is a Moleskine Kahir, and it has pretty nice paper in it. My nice fine nib pens work just fine with this. Now, my machine era markup, this is kind of a fine liner, a wide felt tip fine liner. It bleeds through, but my fountain pens work nicely with it. And when I first started using this, I carried my Kaweco Lilliput, the brass pen in here, and I would just set it in here and close it up and zip it, and it kept it tight enough it didn't rattle around. I also at one point made a little homemade pen loop here to just slide the clip into to keep it so that when I unzipped it, it wouldn't accidentally fall out. But I found since I keep this in my purse, I don't keep a pen in it. In my purse, I keep my Rickshaw 2-pen sleeve, and in one side, I keep my Pentel Sharp Carry. I love this. And then it's there in my purse if I need to take it out and carry it in my pocket. I can carry it as a pocket pencil if I'm not going to be taking my purse with me and I need something to write with. And then whichever of my fountain pens I have inked up at the time, I'll keep in the other side. Now, one other pencil I intend to keep is my Pilot S20. I just love the ergonomics of this. I love the kind of matte nickel finish on all the hardware. The only downside of this is the internals are plastic and it doesn't feel very sturdy, but I kind of baby my stationery stuff. I'm not real hard on it, so I think it'll last. And I just love the way it looks with my Franklin Christoph little pocket traveler's notebook. I love the feel of this. I like the blue. I switched out the elastic for this brown elastic that I already had at home. And it makes it look really nice with my, this is kind of a red cherry stain, but I just like the way it looks together. And the upside of this, let me zoom out a little bit maybe. The upside of this being a lightweight pencil is I just slide it in here and it holds it pretty securely. Now, I keep this beside the armchair that I sit in for whenever I'm reading, and so anytime I have a thought about something or something pops in my head, this is the notebook that I recorded in. And I have found that this Franklin Christoph paper, I don't really like it for fountain pens, but I love it for pencils, especially with 2B lead. It is just so buttery smooth. I love it. So I will probably be replacing the inserts when time comes with more Franklin Christoph pocket notebooks. There's one other fountain pen I forgot to mention. This really kicked off something with me. It's really sent me down a rabbit hole. About a year ago, I went in a local antique shop and found an Esther Brook J fountain pen. I was a little scaredy. I bought it. It took me a little while to replace the ink sac, but when I did, when I started using it, I discovered I really like it. I like the size of this pen. It's in that kind of, the small pilot pen that I always kind of liked. But I don't really, it would work nice posted. I usually don't use it posted, though. I don't want to mess up that nice celluloid. Although, if I do scuff it up a little bit, it is easy to just buff those scratches out, I've discovered. After I replaced the ink sac in this one and discovered that I enjoyed writing with it, it had a broad nib, which was pretty wet. It was fun to write with, but for everyday writing, it was a little bit too wet. So then I got on eBay and bought a medium nib, and it was a little bit drier. It seemed about as wide as the broad nib, but it was a little bit drier, so that was nicer. And then I got a 2556, which is a fine nib, and I'm loving this nib. Now, this one is used, and it writes almost like an architect nib. I have since bought a new old stock 2556. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm anxious to see how it writes, how they compare. But like I said, this sent me down a rabbit hole. Since I'm going to be going to the pen show and I'm going to have a table, I have been buying lots of Esther Brook J pens in various models and sizes and colors. Been replacing the ink sacs, and so I'll have those available for sale at my table. I'm probably, though I really like this green color, I've already got a green pen. I'm probably going to keep one of the blue pens that I have. I don't know. We'll see. I might just put all these Esther Brook pens out for sale on my table, and the last one left might be the one I keep. I don't know. But I did discover that, let me see, the Esther Brook feeds are pretty wet. However, some of my modern inks do tend to dry out. Not as bad as some of my other vintage pens that I've refurbished, but this is one of the better ones. After about 2 or 3 days, it'll kind of dry up and you'll have to re-wet the nib. But I got a bottle of Waterman Mysterious Blue. Everybody always talks about Waterman Serenity Blue as the ink to go to when you're working with vintage pens. I've tried a sample of Serenity Blue and Mysterious Blue, and I just love the color of Mysterious Blue. And it is just as, the performance is just as good and just as reliable as Serenity Blue. And so I tried it in my Esther Brook, and it just performs wonderfully. And I've discovered that, man, I just really like Mysterious Blue. I'm probably going to start using it in my Custom Heritage 92 as well. Well, as far as non-fountain pen pens go, I was pretty sure I was going to keep my Machine Era markup, which uses, let me see, it came with a Schmidt fine liner refill. I like it, but I don't use it quite as much. I've always, before I got into fountain pens, I was always kind of a fan of the Pilot G2 refills. And this will use a Pilot G2 refill as well. And it makes a nice pocket carry gel pen because it's got the cap on it. You don't have to worry about it leaking into your pocket. And along with that, I also like the dimensions and the feel of the Machine Era Field Pen Twist. It uses a Parker style refill, and I thought these two would be nice to use together. If for some reason I need to use a ballpoint pen, I'll have that. In fact, when I did that semester of substitute teaching, I had a green Parker style ballpoint refill in here, and I carried this in my pocket. And during that time, I carried it in the same pocket as I carried my car keys in, and it scuffed up the finish, this diamond-like coating. And I took it out of my pocket one day at school and thought, I've ruined my field pen twist. It just had scratches all over it. And I thought, well, you live and learn. And so over the next few days, I stopped carrying it with my keys. And as I was using it, I noticed, hey, the scratches are gone. It turns out what looked like scratches that went all the way down to the stainless steel base was just the metal from my keys that had scratched onto this coating. And as I used it, it cleaned that residue off, and now it just looks good as new. So both of these have the diamond-like coating and are just very durable. And so I was pretty sure that these were the two I was going to keep and get rid of all my other ballpoint pens and gel pens. But I don't know, I'm having second thoughts because I do like the Modern Fuel, I'll think of what the bolt action pen, because it uses Parker style refills and the Pilot G2 style refills, as well as many other refills. So I don't know what I might do the same thing that I'm considering with my Esther Brooks. Just put all of these out on the table, and if someone buys this one, I'll keep these two. And my mind might change between now and then. We'll see. One other notebook I might keep is my Filofax A5 notebook. I've discovered that my little ARC disc-bound notebook hole punch works for the A5 size. Now, if you go much bigger, like if I wanted to use this for a larger notebook, the holes are off by just a little bit, but it works great for this A5 size and the pocket size if you want to use it for the pocket size. I have replaced my Filofax paper with some Rhodia Ice Notebook grid paper, and I love this. I'm not crazy about the color that I got. I got this because it was the cheapest on Amazon, the cheapest of all the colors. If this doesn't sell, I'm perfectly happy to keep it because I just love the thinness of it, and I love being able to switch the order of the papers around. I've got my own pin loop that I made and put in here. But if it does sell, I'll probably buy another one of these just in a different color. Okay, so the reason all this came about is my sister and I were finally able to make arrangements to be able to attend the St. Louis Pin Show together. And I decided, hey, I'm going to sell a few things on eBay, free up a little space in my collection, be able to have a little money to take to the pin show with me. And I started looking into it, and I've sold lots of stuff on eBay before, but selling lots of little items like this was just going to cost me so much in shipping. And I thought, I wonder how much a table would cost. Now, keep in mind, I've never been to a pin show before. So I looked it up, and for the price that I would have to pay to ship 20 to 25 pins, that's the price of a table at the pin show. And so I called my sister up and I told her about it. And she said, are you going to make me work at a table at my first pin show? And I said, oh, no, I don't want you to feel like you have to do that. And less than a minute later, within the next sentence that we spoke to each other, she said, hey, go ahead and try to get a table. And so I submitted the request, got accepted. And so we're both really excited about it. And so if you're going to be at the pin show, the St. Louis Pin Show this summer in 2024, stop by the table, say hi. Don't feel like you have to buy anything. Just say hi. I'm curious to see if anybody will be in the area that has seen my videos before. But I just want to say that I'm going to follow this up with some videos showing what I will be taking to the pin show. I'll have a video of just fountain pens, a video of non-fountain pen pens. Let me zoom out. I'll have a video of pencils, a video of notebooks. I think that's it. I don't know. It depends on how much space I have. I might bring some ink. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.